Hi, I'm Tyler.
And I'm Sadie with Great Catholic Book Club.
And we're here to talk about The Great Divorce.
This was our November book of the month, the last book of our inaugural year.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought this was just such a wonderful way to cap off the year. First of all, it's the only explicitly Christian book on the list.
Yep.
And it's C.S. Lewis's... I'm going to go ahead and say it, although I'm sure that if C.S. Lewis were alive right now, he would object to my depiction, but it's his idea of what purgatory looks like.
Yep.
Now, he wasn't a Catholic, and I don't think he explicitly believed in the doctrine of purgatory, but I've never seen purgatory described in a way that made it so understandable for me.
Yeah.
You know, like, so with Dante in the Divine Comedy, he describes purgatory as a distinct stage.
Right.
But in The Great Divorce, it's not so much a distinct stage or a distinct place as that all the different character sketches make these choices as their self-awareness grows, as their willingness grows. They're either walking along that path towards the Lord, or they fall short and they can't do it, and they turn around and walk back towards hell. And purgatory seems to be that middle stage where they're wrestling with which direction they want to go in.
Yeah.
And unlike the Divine Comedy, which I keep going back to Dante when I read this because it just really reminded me so much of that.
Yeah.
But unlike in the Divine Comedy, it's really up to the individual. It's this radical free will. It's their choice where they want to go.
Yeah. You can either keep walking, in which case it's been heaven all along, or you can stop, turn back, in which case it's been hell all along.
Right. Starting from your life on earth.
Right.
You know, it's either heaven all along or hell all along. So we thought it would be really fun to not only talk about The Great Divorce and how beautiful it is and all of the stories in it and, you know, the things that we love about it, but do a retrospective of all the books that we've read this year.
Yeah.
Because there's so many characters in it who could have been written into The Great Divorce. Like, they could have been characters having those moments of conversion all along the way.
So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of our books in order January through November, and we're going to just take a look at one or two characters in the book and talk about it through the lens of The Great Divorce. So our first book in January was The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Okay, so Hitchhiker's Guide, you know, the character that I would most imagine walking up that mountain in C.S. Lewis's Great Divorce is Zaphod Beeblebrox.
Really?
Yeah. I know he gets treated as like a joke character, sort of shallow or one-dimensional, but so Zaphod is somebody who willingly cauterized his own brain to hide his plot from himself. And his plot has to do with trying to save the universe, trying to do something good. And we only read the first one. Okay, so this is actually like five parts, I think.
Yeah.
And so, you know, spoilers for anyone who hasn't read beyond this. At a certain point, I think it's in book 3, you realize that they're looking for God.
Okay.
Which Douglas Adams envisions as just a human creature, like a person that they find on a planet somewhere. But anyway, they're looking for God. And so you don't know this reading book 1, but Zaphod is not as amoral as the book jokingly on the surface seems to portray him.
Okay.
He's actually trying to do something good in his own way. And so again, more spoilers, but when he finds God in book 3, it is a really bad experience for him. It's a devastating disappointment. He's so disappointed in God that he's disgusted and full of despair. And like it puts such a deep cynicism into him.
Yeah.
So now imagine that Zaphod Beeblebrox is on that mountain making that choice, and he's full of that much despair and disgust and cynicism towards God. It's not that he doesn't believe God exists. It's that he has like every negative idea that God doesn't care, God isn't competent. And so just imagine that like a saint comes to Zaphod and just needs to convince him that that's not who God really is. Right.
That his idea of God is wrong. But that, you know, the God that he's looking for is actually out there. And if he just keeps walking, he's going to get there.
And don't you think it's a character that has a lot of exuberance and sort of, you know, like in a lot of ways it's like you have a person where choosing heaven is only about making the decision to pick the level of optimism and joy and cheerfulness, like a hope that is already within their heart. Because a lot of people decide to choose hell, not because they're choosing sin, but because they don't have any hope that there's anything good if they go to his heaven. Like, they don't believe that a God or love or any good outcome is really there. So they just lost hope.
Right.
And I feel like Zaphod Beeblebrox is a character that shows all you need is a restoration of hope.
Yep.
You know, sometimes that's what repentance looks like. Is it's not like this big confession of all your sins, which of course, but your biggest sin might just be you're so cynical and you don't have any hope left.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah.
That's brilliant. I like that.
Sorry, totally could not stop talking about this book and say, this is actually what our conversations look like at home. As I sit there, sometimes it's like 7 o'clock in the morning, the alarm just went off, he rolls over like this, and he looks at my face, and let's talk about this and that and this and that and this and that. I'm like, it's been 10 years of this for him. But anyway.
It's a good start.
Yeah.
All right. So next up, in February, we read Ender's Game. This was such a rich ground for meditating on Catholic teachings, on so many beautiful things. And I think in this case, if you look at the character of Ender, I find it very interesting because Ender, you made the point that you really need to look at this, and I'm going to do spoilers here, so if you haven't read the book,
spoilers on every single book. Yeah.
There's one way to look at before he destroys the buggers, and then after, because that is such an abrupt and drastic change for his character. But before, up until he kills the buggers, he is doing what he believes as a child being molded and guided by adults is morally and ethically correct. He believes he's doing the right thing, and he's seeking approval and seeking validation as only a child can. And he's really trying hard to do the right thing. And he's also seeking some power and control over his own life.
He doesn't want to be bullied anymore.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be bullied anymore.
To a certain extent, when you put a child, or even an adult, but especially, this is why it's significant that it's a child, you put them in a situation where you intentionally expose them to bullying and danger, and then conveniently program them to believe that if they do the thing you want them to do, then they'll be safe from that bullying.
Right.
So what is moral and what leads to personal survival become intertwined.
Yep.
That's trauma that you're inducing on the person.
Yeah.
So they start to think, well, what's moral is what allows me to be insulated and protected. So in a lot of ways, you see him wanting power, right? He wants to feel a sense of competence and mastery and control.
Yep.
Not because he's like Peter, his brother, not because he has this power hungry, almost bloodthirsty desire to control others, but because he's looking for a place where he'll finally be safe.
Yeah.
Personally safe. And so you have Ender's psychology before he kills the buggers. And then you have Ender's psychology after he kills the buggers. All right, buddy, well, now you got what you wanted. You got the power and the mastery and the competence, and you destroyed the so-called bullies. And that's when you realize Ender looks at him and goes, I don't want it.
Yep. I'm out.
Yeah.
And he completely transforms all of his aims, all of his goals, all of everything that he wants out of the world suddenly makes such a drastic shift to now he only wants God. He only wants redemption. And he is desperate for some kind of redemption.
And there's a humbleness in him. He doesn't want to protect himself anymore at all. Because he sees that trying so desperately, he who would save his life would lose it. That he was so desperate to save himself that he lost his life. He lost his moral compass. So Ender's actually a character which, had he been in The Great Divorce, had C.S. Lewis imagined this kind of character, he would already be charging up that mountain, at any cost. You wouldn't necessarily even need a saint to meet him, because that moment had happened.
Yeah, and he's free. He's able to confront the things that he's done. He's able to confront his sins, overcome them, and then move forward with a new kind of freedom.
But it's the freedom of being truly humble.
Yeah.
Right? True humility is you're so not caught up in pride and trying to present a self to the world that you think is immune to criticism.
Yes.
You just give up. You're fine, criticize. I think that when we were talking earlier about this book, it's that mindset of Job, let me be despised and rejected. I only want you, Lord.
Yep.
You just don't even care about yourself anymore.
Yep.
That's what you see in Ender is he's sick of himself. He doesn't care.
Yep.
And it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, we'll end up talking about Ender's Game forever.
Yes.
But I want to talk about Watchmen forever.
Yeah. This is the book that has been subject of conversation for us for a while now. This is Watchmen.
Yeah.
This was our March book.
So many people did not understand why we picked this book. It's so dark and it's so ugly in many ways. It's like, yeah, absolutely. So why is it one of my favorite books?
Mm-hmm.
I will go ahead and say the character of Rorschach.
Yep.
Okay, and the comedian. We were thinking about this book, like, when you're talking about those moments of conversion, there is much made, I think, in the public commentary about Watchmen and all the think pieces about it on, it was about Dr. Manhattan's moment of conversion. But I pointed out to you, he didn't convert at all. Nothing changed about him.
Yeah.
Same thing with Laurie. Like, most of the characters in the book, at least, and the two who were supposed to be the examples of conversion, which is Laurie and Dr. Manhattan, are exactly the same and pretty much exactly as selfish, self-centered, and awful as they were in the beginning.
Yeah, because nothing that Dr. Manhattan actually does after his conversion is really of consequence. Like, he kills Rorschach to keep the secret, and then he kills Ozymandias, which I guess could be some, like, retributive justice, but...
I guess, but he already did what he was going to do. Right.
He doesn't prevent the thing from happening.
And killing Rorschach is in order to preserve the lie.
Yeah.
Because these are people who truly don't believe that the truth will heal anything.
Right.
So, yeah, that's not a character I would say... I don't feel like the psychology of Dr. Manhattan is all that interesting to me.
No.
But... the comedian. Oh my goodness. So this is a character who is explicitly amoral at best, immoral intentionally, has a cynical, dismissive view of the world, intentionally makes, and the point of that he's a comedian is that he thinks humanity is a joke.
Yeah.
He doesn't treat human life as if it's anything serious or anything of value. Like, this is such a cold, ugly person. And yet, when he discovers what Ozymandias is going to do, and he discovers, like, all the death and the pain and the suffering that's going to get put out, right before he's murdered, that's when he has that moment of shock. Like, that shocks him. And I think the line is that he thought everything was a joke until he came across a joke that wasn't funny. And... that was a really powerful moment of conversion. But then the character is murdered right after, so you don't see where it goes. But that's a character where, like, then it would follow up with, now he's in the Great Divorce. Now he's on that mountain, and
now
what
he has to
direction
wrestle
is he
with
going
that.
to go in? So the church doesn't teach whether or not this person is a saint. We don't know. But the man that killed Saint Maria Goretti. Okay, so Saint Maria Goretti was raped and murdered when she was a young girl. And she's a saint. That's a canonized saint. But the man that murdered her went to prison. He was completely unrepentant. And she kept coming to him in dreams, offering him forgiveness. And he kept angrily rejecting it. But at some point, he had a massive conversion experience in jail. And he repented, and he came to the Lord, and he confessed, and so I have no idea whether this man, when he died, is or is not a saint in heaven now, or whether he's in purgatory. But I would imagine that person would be a very good person to meet the comedian on that mountain. Because this is someone who understands that depth. This is a thing. There are canonized saints who were murderers. And then who repented. I just can't think of any off the top of my head right now. But Saint Maria Goretti, to me, reminds me so much of, like, the victims of the comedian.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And then, to be able to walk up that mountain, truly confront your sins, and accept forgiveness for them, like, in a real way, and atone for those sins, and then keep walking.
I think the comedian even tried to when he tried to talk to Laurie, because he realized that's his daughter. You know, and he was trying in his own way, like, we're not even at this book yet, but in Brave New World,
Yeah.
where they talk about how like an old man's thoughts turn to God.
Yep.
The comedian, as he becomes an old man,
Mm-hmm.
is starting to want a connection with the child that he never knew.
Yep.
Is I wonder if the comedian had been 20 years younger when he discovered what Ozymandias was going to do.
Yeah.
Maybe it wouldn't have struck him the same way.
Maybe.
Maybe
Yeah.
he wouldn't have been, maybe it takes some age and some dawning awareness of your own impending mortality to
Yeah.
realize, how fragile human life is and how valuable human life is. Because the young can be cruel. You know, I think that was from Mao.
Sure.
Chairman Mao, the young have a capacity for cruelty, because they feel omnipotent.
Yep.
When you're. But anyway, okay. The other character in Watchmen that I just have such a powerful sense of like relationship with is Rorschach.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, Rorschach is presented like he's this sociopath. He's capable of all of this cruelty and evil, but Rorschach is the most uncompromisingly moral character.
Yeah.
He's the zealot. He's the true believer.
Yeah.
And everybody else in the novel makes moral compromises. Right? But there are times where Rorschach does not necessarily enact the vengeance that he believes is warranted.
Yeah.
Times he restrains himself are not out of moral compromise, it's out of mercy.
Yes.
Like when he confronts his landlady, and this is after she was on the news, like maligning his character, defaming him, saying a whole bunch of stuff about him that wasn't true. He starts to really tell her all about herself.
Yep.
And then she just looks at him, and the drawing, I love that this is a graphic novel too, right? Because you can see like the faces, and she looks at him with like this panic in her face. She goes, please, my children are listening. And he pauses and he looks at the kids and he makes that decision in that moment that he's going to show mercy to her. Yeah. She deserves judgment, but he's going to give her mercy.
Yeah.
And that's what mercy really looks like. It doesn't, I think in our modern world, we act like being morally compromised is what mercy looks like.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not.
No, goodness no.
And then the other thing about Rorschach that is so meaningful to me is, okay, so like I spent these years being a Buddhist. I spent years being like a very seriously practicing Buddhist. I read all the books, you know. And there's an author named Pema Chodron who I just loved. I loved her work. And in one of her books, she was telling a story, making a point saying that, when somebody shoots you with an arrow, it's a normal thing to want to go chase after the person that shot you and either get revenge on them, like shoot them back, or or at least get justice from them. Like admit that you shot me with an arrow and like atone it, fix for this. Like you are responsible for fixing it.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay, as understandable as that is, it might be a lot more reasonable to, instead of going after the person that shot you, maybe just sit and realize that you've been wounded by an arrow.
Right.
That you have a wound in your heart. And I really connected with that when I read this, well over a decade ago. The thing is, you can't stay in that place of connecting to the wound in your heart if you don't know what to do with it.
Right.
And what Buddhism doesn't do, Dr. Peter Kreeft said, Buddhism is the closest you can get to the Gospels without Jesus. Okay, but that Jesus part is critical.
It's really important. Yeah.
Right, because when you're sitting there with that wound in your heart, and you realize, like, you can't do anything about it. What can you, only Jesus, only his graces, only his love can heal those wounds.
Yeah.
So if you don't have Jesus, how are you going to bear to sit there and just touch that vulnerability in yourself? So Rorschach, to me, is somebody who was so wounded and so abused as a child. And I can really relate to this, right? Because my childhood was super, super abusive. And I was the oldest. I had younger siblings. And what you do in those cases, for some people, is like you want to turn into like a warrior of justice. Like you really want to turn into a protector.
Yeah.
And I see that in the character of Rorschach. Like this is, he really wants to protect the vulnerable. He wants to protect other children that are being hurt.
Yeah.
And so you become obsessed with like chasing after the person that was slinging the arrows.
Yeah.
You're going to get them, and that's how you're going to protect the kid. Well, what if Rorschach is standing on C.S. Lewis's mountain and a saint comes down and explains to him look, it's all well and good. It's natural, maybe even a beautiful natural thing to want to go after the abusers that slung the arrows at the victims.
Right.
But it is a supernatural thing to instead turn to those children and give them comfort and give them love.
Yeah.
And for Rorschach, for us, for me, for any of us, like, to pause and to do that instead of just going out there and being this warrior and being this protector, to instead turn to the child and just comfort the child, means you have to confront how vulnerable and helpless you felt.
Yeah.
And I mean, you look at a person like that and just be like, well, okay, if they can't do it, should they really be condemned to hell because of that? Because they're not bad people, but you're so wounded that you can't unclench and let the Lord heal that wound.
Yeah. Well, that's why you need the Lord. That's why you need graces to be able to begin that healing. And it starts small, but then, opens it up. But you need those graces. You need the Lord. You need the gospel to even have a chance.
But you need to know that it's okay. Like, if you show this wound, then... Well, you grew up on a farm. Animals are like that. Like, a wounded animal is dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And the animal has to trust you. And that if you take their wound and if you start to clean it out, like, that it's going to be okay. It's not, you're not going to hurt them.
Yep.
Right? You're not, and so much of it, imagine that the Lord is like looking at all of his wounded babies and saying, like, if you would just trust me that I'm not going to hurt you.
Yeah.
But I can't heal you if you don't let me. So, yeah, the incredible, like, gentleness and trust. And you think of a character like Rorschach who has never known gentleness.
Yeah.
Never known that kind of tenderness. So, anyway, that book to me, it means more and more to me every time I read it, because this character of Rorschach, I feel, is like just such a perfect example of what grace can do in someone's heart.
Amen.
I mean, not that you see that at all in the novel, right? But that's part of it, it's the absence of that grace.
Right.
But anyway, okay, so we can't talk about Watchmen for the entire video.
But we are learning so much, and we're figuring things out. And I love the way that we've grown over this year.
Yeah.
Which we're going to keep moving on. Our next book.
Yes.
For April, we read Pride and Prejudice. This was such a beautiful book, and it was such an important book to you and me, to our marriage. Reading this book together in this book club just meant the world to me, because we got to see the relationships, but primarily the relationship between Darcy and Elizabeth, and being able to see how that played out, and how they initially didn't like each other. Like, there was friction, there was tension, but then the call and response of Elizabeth calling out to Darcy and saying, here's the things that I don't like about you. This is why I would never marry you. These are the faults that I see in you. And then his response of seeing what's valid, seeing what's real, explaining where she's mistaken, where she's misinformed, where she's missing some information, but not from a place of defensiveness or attacking or anger, but from a place of, like, genuinely wanting her to not suffer under any misunderstandings or not be lacking knowledge in any way.
His desire to want her to understand him is not a selfish desire.
No, it's
because
not.
A lot of times when we want the other person to understand us, it's from a place of selfishness.
Yep.
It's like self-protectiveness. You know what? They met each other on the mountain.
They did, yeah.
Yeah, on C.S. Lewis's Mountain of Purgatory, they met each other and they guided each other up that mountain.
That's true, because, and this is a classic, like, it's such a great example of what the sacrament of marriage is supposed to be, right? It's for, like, the point of it for the spouses, for the husband and the wife, is to make each other holy. So, like, we are married, first of all, for the provision and raising children in the faith, but also, like, for the holiness of each other. Like, my main role as your husband is to make you holy. Your main role as my wife is to make me holy. So, seeing that play out in Pride and Prejudice, where they both sort of call out the faults in the other, and then they each have a chance to respond by growing in virtue and willing the good of the other.
So, in a way, you could say that in the Great Divorce, the saints that come to talk to the potential saints, to move them up the mountain, are an icon of spouses in a marriage.
Yeah.
Because that's how it's supposed to work. Like, you tether yourself to the other, and you're like, we're going up the mountain.
Yeah.
And if you stumble, you're tied to me.
Yep.
And if I stumble, I'm tied to you.
Mhm.
You know, and at some point, like, and if we both stumble, we've got the Lord, right? Like, he'll pull us up. The saints will pull us up.
Yeah.
But the point is, like, I'm not going to let you fall, and you're not going to let me fall. Like, we're going to pull each other up. And that's another way that it's heaven all along.
Yeah.
Because if you are living that out in your marriage, in your friendships, in your relationships, in this life, you know, you're striving to their holiness, you're holding each other to those standards. And you can't be tethered to the whole world, right? I think that's another point of the sacrament of marriage.
Right.
And that's something that Pride and Prejudice always stuck out to me, because the only characters that had that were fully fleshed out, multi-dimensional human beings are Elizabeth and Darcy.
Yeah.
The other characters are so one-dimensional. They're so flat, and there's no growth. Like, they don't change. You can't tether yourself to everyone.
Right.
But Mother Teresa's quote, you know, always about, like, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. Like, the specific people that the Lord has tied you to, you're walking up the mountain together.
Absolutely. And that's how God designed us, right? That's Adam and Eve in the garden. Is, you know, the Catholic Church teaches that the fundamental unit of society is the family. Like, we are made for that husband-wife union, and so that is how this whole system was designed from the beginning. Like, the whole idea of divinization, of the journey to be united with God, part of that is, you know, the pairing up of husband and wife to reach that goal.
So I think this was Father Ripperger, I'm not sure, was saying that when Eve ate the apple, you couldn't say original sin had happened because the sin wasn't completed. Okay. It wasn't completed until the one she was tethered to also sinned instead of... So at that moment, when Eve took the apple and ate it, if Adam had said no and had pulled her up instead out of the sin, the act of sin would not have been completed.
That's mind-blowing.
Yeah. I don't know if this was Father Ripperger, so I might be falsely attributing, but he says so many brilliant things that it really doesn't matter. So.
That's beautiful. I love that.
But it was some theologian whose work is all over the place on YouTube. So
That's great.
But isn't that really? Yeah. So this is where we're called. This is where I can really see how Pride and Prejudice fits into Lewis's vision here on Earth. Like how it can be heaven all along or hell along, and really, the company you keep. Oh my goodness! I think like that's been something I've really, really thought a lot about this year, especially. The company you keep will either help pull you up that mountain or pull you back down. Yeah. And it's so important to remember that, not so much as a matter of like judging other people, but looking at yourself and being like, am I the kind of person that would retard the spiritual growth of another person? Right. Like, would I be pulling them down? Because you don't want to be that person. Right. Calling others down back into hell. Yeah. You know?
Your responsibility is to be the kind of person who's going to be pushing the person on, who's going to, pulling them along with you. Yeah. And it should be like always kind of a back and forth of both spouses, like trying to pull the other person on.
Right. Okay. So. Yeah. Beautiful book.
It's a great book.
I know. Like, well, the problem is this video is going to be like 2 hours long because we want to talk about each book. Yeah. So whatever. But should we move on to what did we read next?
In May, we read Brave New World. So this book, oh my god, this is the book that broke me.
Yeah. You were so, like, he doesn't get shocked easily or anything, but reading that book, you were like, I don't like it. No, like, I don't like it. It is a bad world. Yep. And you don't want to, and like when you read, you get into the book. Yep. Like you really immerse yourself in that world, like creatively. Yeah. And so Brave New World was not like, no. Not your cup of tea.
So let's talk about the character. Well, there's two characters that I want to talk about. I want to talk about John the Savage and Helmholtz Watson. Okay. So Helmholtz is interesting because I think, and this is kind of what we were talking about in the car earlier, like he is stuck in this world and like he's seeking something. He's searching for something, but he's stuck in a world that is so bad. Right. That I don't think he can truly imagine.
And he's a product of that world. Yeah. So he's got that. He's internalized the morality of that world to a higher extent than he wants to believe.
Right, right. To the point where I don't think he can imagine anything else.
So Helmholtz, to me, if he were on Lewis's Purgatory Mountain,
Mm-hmm.
This is a person who so idolizes the intellectual.
Yep.
And it's not that it's a bad thing, but he can't imagine that the logos, the pinnacle of the intellect,
Mm-hmm.
is in the supernatural virtue of love.
Right.
He finds love to be something ridiculous and
Yeah.
laughable, and he can't connect. Obviously, the way that these people were raised, you can even call it raised, I don't know, propagandized, molded, manipulated by the brave new world, is that you're creating people who cannot love God or neighbor.
Yeah.
They have no concept because they see themselves as consumer objects.
Mm-hmm.
They exist to consume and be consumed.
Yep.
So this is where I was saying, like, St. Thomas Aquinas needs to come down Mount Purgatory and meet Helmholtz Watson and explain to him that your natural reason and your natural brilliance will get you very, very far. It can get you as far as the great thinkers, Aristotle, Plato, like it'll get you that far.
Yeah.
However, unless you have the infused virtues, unless your intellect is enlightened by the supernatural truth and brilliance of God, you are stuck.
Yeah.
You are not going to get any higher. And I think that is the kind of information that a character like Helmholtz Watson, it would get through to him because he idolizes his intellect.
He needs somebody to make a connection between his intellect and the gospel.
Yes.
To be able to see that there's a natural connection here and that there's a bridge to something better.
Yeah. He has to see that love is not, it's not a lower emotion. It's not an immature. These are people who grew up in a world where, like, there is no love. There's just gratification seeking. There's promiscuity. And so JP2 said in Love and Responsibility that lower levels of what people mistake as love, one of those things is sentiment, affection. It's like those feelings. And so rightfully so, a character like Helmholtz Watson would think that love is just those sort of puppy dog, lower feelings of affection or desire.
Right.
And so when you talk about love as the highest pinnacle, he's like, no, that's not.
Right. He can't conceive that love, like the willing the good of the other, that, like true desire for the well-being of another person, that is the linchpin, like that is the thing that solves everything.
He would have to see that love is the ultimate act of the will and the intellect. Love is perfectly demonstrated in the cross.
Yes.
He would have to be given the message of the gospel and say, love looks like Christ crucified.
Amen.
That is something that a character like Helmholtz would get. Yeah. Okay, John the Savage. Was the other one. You were very charitable towards him.
I remember,
and I wasn't.
John the Savage is I think that he's a character who all he needs to know is that there's something better out there.
Right.
Like he is so open to the gospel, to the good news, to like he has this he knows there's something better. He knows that the world he's in now can't possibly be the end. I think he has some idea that he's made for something different because he read Shakespeare and it affected him. It touched his heart. He saw the beauty in that, but he doesn't know what to do with that.
He thinks the better world that he is made for is the brave new world. Like to him, okay, so St. Augustine saying, our hearts are restless, Lord, and they will not rest until they rest in you. That we are made for more. We're made for the communion of angels and saints, not for anything in this life. But if you don't have a spiritual view of life, you grow up on that reservation that John the Savage grew up on, and he's constantly thinking of a better world where people are loving and kind and good, and they're mature. He's thinking like the world where Shakespeare was written.
Yeah.
Wherever is the civilization, the community that produced art like this,
right?
That's where I'll finally find my people. And that's what he's looking for. He's like, where am I going to find my people?
Yeah.
And he thinks when he's taken out of the reservation and he's taken to the brave new world, like he's so naive and innocent, and he thinks he's being taken to heaven.
Right.
And especially all the stories his mom would tell him of the civilized world and how much better it is. And when he gets there, he discovers oh no, you're all terrible.
Yeah.
My mistake.
Yeah.
I thought you were good people.
Right.
You know,
right.
and this devastates him. And man, I relate to this more than I've been willing to admit, actually. Yeah. Like, I've been there, like, walking and thinking, like, you know, oh my goodness. Well, actually, you know what? This describes my experience the first few years in the church.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Because I'm, like, reading Humanae Vitae, and I'm reading the beautiful teachings, and I'm reading the works of JP2 and Benedict, and I'm reading the scriptures through, like, the liturgical lens, and I was like, oh, brave new world that has such people in it. Like, I'm going to go to the churches, I'm going to go to the parishes, and, like, I'm just going to discover all the people that created this. And then you're like, oh, my mistake. I thought everyone went to church because they really believe in the Lord and love the Lord.
Yeah.
And it turns out that's not why everybody goes to church. In fact, that turns out that's not actually why 98% of the people are there.
Yeah.
Like, you know, but here's the thing with John, okay? He gets so jaded.
Yeah.
That, and you were charitable about his taking of his life towards him. We have to be careful how we say it on YouTube. We have to say unalived, otherwise they'll like censor our video. But he takes his own life because the perfection he was looking for, he doesn't believe it's in this life anymore. Right. And to me, this was an act of childishness and petulance. Like, this was like that resentful, fine, you know, then I'll reject you. Yeah, yeah. And I've had to come to my own conclusion of realizing, look, you know, you are not going to find this perfect. What I want is the communion of angels and saints. Yeah. What I want is to find that community of people who just love the Lord, and that's not on this earth, and Jesus told us so. He said the wheat and the weeds grow up together. Yep, absolutely. And that's where we're at right now. And if you respond to that by getting so self-righteous and so upset that you take yourself out, you know, like that's, so you can't blame John because he never heard the message of the gospel. Right. He never knew, you know, that there is the next life, right? Yep. Like, you're not going to find what you want in this world. But that's the kind of despair that happens when the world disappoints you. Yeah, he didn't have hope, which is something that we see over and over again in a lot of these books. Is the character lacks hope. Yeah. And if they had hope, then that would be the end of the game. Like, they'd be able to persevere. They'd be able to do whatever they needed to do. But without hope, you end like Brave New World does. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And despair is a sin. It is. Absolutely. For that reason, right? Yep. Like, that's, yeah, if you're that disappointed in the world, if you think this world is all there is, then despair is the only outcome. Yep. Absolutely. Right? And so that's somebody else where if he's on this mountain, right, to be, this is the other thing too, when you feel like you've been burned, and you're not willing to trust again. So a person like John, after unaliving himself because he didn't find the beautiful thing that he was looking for a saint to meet him on that mountain and say, well, the beautiful thing you were looking for does exist. Yeah, absolutely. Keep walking up the mountain. Yeah. Like, you didn't find it on earth because you weren't going to find it on earth. Yeah. He would have to be willing to trust again and to hope again. Yeah. He would be willing to have to get excited again for what lies ahead. Yeah. And a lot of times when you've been burned that bad, you're not willing to let that hope spring anew in you. You have to have a childlike willingness to just say, all right, let's do it again. Yeah, yeah. But, you know, if you can do that, if you can cultivate that childlike innocence, that hope, that willingness to move forward despite past hurts, you can do anything. See, and that's my whole jam, too. Let's do it again. Let's do it. All right, now, so our June book was Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. This was a really great book to read again, because I read it as a little kid, you know, and it just scared me. But to read it again as an adult in the Catholic Church, to look at the Catholic teachings, this blew me away. And I want to talk about Dr. Grant and his journey from this single guy with no commitments, no attachments. He's married to his job. That's the only thing he cares about in the world, to sort of becoming a foster father for these two kids. Yeah. And then guiding them through Jurassic Park, through all these dangers, and ultimately to safety.
That's one of my favorite character arcs that we read all year.
Well, he was willing to walk up the mountain. If he were in C.S. Lewis's book,
Mm-hmm.
he'd be willing to walk up the mountain for someone besides himself.
Yeah.
Right? Like this is an unselfish person.
Yeah.
Maybe he wouldn't do those things for himself,
Mm-hmm.
but for the sake of others, for protecting other innocent lives,
Yeah.
he's all in.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and so this is a person that inconvenience to oneself. I've met people like this
Yeah.
in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like they're just not concerned about their own convenience. They're not hung up on their own selfishness.
Yeah.
The thing, like, they wouldn't be willing to do something, but if you explain to them, look, like, other people might get hurt or you're going to help other people,
Yeah.
they're in without even thinking about it.
Yep. Absolutely.
You know, like, thoughtless virtue.
Yep.
These are people who are just holy by default.
Yeah. It's not a question of them whether or not they're going to put their own selfishness first, or whether they even have any selfishness. Like, this is just a person who sees somebody in need and steps in to fill that need.
There's a job to be done.
Mm-hmm.
There's a good to be done.
Yep.
And it's like they just have a relief, like, oh, finally, I can be useful.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and there's no other thought to that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not just a fictional one. You can say, like, oh, okay, well, yeah, it's a work of fiction, of course. But,
Mm-hmm.
I've met people like that.
Yeah. This is something that, like, I have to work every day. And, going back to Pride and Prejudice, this is something that my marriage really helps me to cultivate, because otherwise I wouldn't do it.
I am like that with my kids.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, so
Mhm.
it's selective. Like, the ability to, like, turn that on to just be like, oh, it's 3 a.m. and, like, a baby is crying. I don't care. I don't
Right,
care. Like, it's
right.
such a... I wouldn't do something for me, but if it's my kids...
Yeah.
That's why I relate so much to Linda from Bob's Burgers, which I keep trying to, like, get people to watch Bob's Burgers. That's my persuasive rhetoric in every
Yeah.
single video we've made. But,
Yeah.
like, because if it's my kids, like, okay.
Yep.
But it can't only be, like... Real holiness means being able to spread to
Right.
a general sense of solidarity and love with
Mhm.
humankind. But okay, a character that I want to bring up. Hammond.
Really? Okay.
Imagine Hammond on the mountain. Not because it would be a good outcome.
Yeah.
Okay? Hammond would be like Napoleon.
Yep. Blaming everybody else.
Blaming everybody else,
Yep.
defending himself, justifying, like, that is a character. When you think of Hammond being on C.S. Lewis's Purgatory Mountain,
Mm-hmm.
this is a dude that wouldn't even make it on the bus.
Yeah.
Right? Because he's so defensive and
Mhm.
so full of rationalizations,
Yep.
justifications, explaining why he's so perfect
Yep.
and had the best of intentions, and everything was everybody else's fault. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's Napoleon.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, I don't have much to say of Hammond, except that would be a character where I just realized this too about the Great
Mhm.
Divorce. To even get so far that a saint would be able to talk to
Mhm.
you about your faults and start persuading you
Yeah.
requires an individual act of, like, you
Yes.
have to reach out first.
Yeah.
You have to first be willing to go a certain
Yep.
lane.
Yep. You have to get on the bus. You have to start
Yeah.
walking.
And you have to
Yeah.
get far enough.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not going to be done for you.
Yep.
Those saints are not going to go that far,
Mhm.
you know, in Lewis's vision
Yeah,
of it. But
yeah.
I think that's a very accurate vision.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing with the Lord. He's reaching out, but you have to reach out
Mhm.
back,
Yeah.
you know, and you have to stretch just a little further than he's reaching out
Right.
on
right.
purpose.
The grace will take you a long ways, but grace requires cooperation to be
Yeah.
effective.
So I think when St. Paul says, you know, to complete what was lacking in the sacrifice of Christ,
Mhm.
there's nothing lacking in the sacrifice of Christ.
Right.
Right? It's us having to cover that bridge with our
Yeah.
own reaching out,
Yeah. It's
reaching back.
our participation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our participation is required. And
Mm-hmm.
Hammond is a perfect example of someone who is not going to get that
Yeah.
far.
Yeah.
So anyway, okay.
Now we're on
Now-
Foundation.
now Foundation.
Our July book was Foundation by Isaac Asimov. This is a fascinating book. I think we should talk about the character of Salvor Hardin
Mhm.
and the way, just the cynical way that he used religion to manipulate and gain power.
Yeah.
That blew me away. Like, reading this book again through the Catholic lens was just the cynicism involved in creating this religion specifically to manipulate and control people.
But also, Hardin was not a, quote unquote, bad person.
Right.
In the first place, the reason he took over and he did the coup and kicked the encyclopedias out was not because he was just like after this naked power and greed. Like they gave you examples of the warlords of Anacreon, okay, people that just like the savages and they just wanted power.
Yeah.
Hardin is not that. He did not want to take over for his own aggrandizement. What he saw was that he was morally outraged and disgusted at how the encyclopedists did not care about the well-being at all of the people that they were charged with caring for. They were so arrogant and self-centered.
Yeah. He had he had good goals. Like the things he wanted were good. He wanted the Foundation to thrive, to grow, to succeed, to survive.
He didn't want them conquered and taken slaves by, the Anacronian.
Yeah. And at the same time, he believed that the ends justify the means. Yeah.
Now, there are a lot of people, that reminds me a lot of, like, I think I was telling you, like, Saul Alinsky, and this idea that, by any means necessary, if your ends are good, your means, you should try to make your means as good as you can, but don't let your morals get in the way of doing what's right.
It's
I think
okay
is the quote.
And
not only is it okay, but that sometimes the morally correct thing to do is the immoral thing.
Yep.
And I see this in a lot of people who mean very, very well, right? They're motivated by the right things. They're outraged at the injustice in the world. And they want to do something about it. They want to take action. But they also think it's foolish, naive, and defeating to think that you should really be a good person. Like they believe that will get you slaughtered. Yep. Right? Like they believe you should be wise as a serpent, but not gentle as a dove.
Yeah.
You can't afford to be that idealistic in the world. Yep. And, they often turn to, not that it's explicitly said, but the point is like, well, look, all that idealism and gentleness, look what it did to Jesus, right? It got him killed. Right. And they forget the next part of the story, which is he resurrected and overcame, but they don't believe that part. Yeah. Right? They don't have the faith in that. So Hardin reminds me of that kind of person who just believes that to be a truly moral person is foolishness and weakness, and that you're not really going to accomplish the good that you want to do in the world if you bind yourself too tightly to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas Christianity, what Jesus Christ says, you must bind yourself completely to it.
That you can't have the good without, the good. You can't have the good end without the good means.
Which is logical.
Right. It makes perfect sense.
But when we're confronted with the world and we're confronted with all the evil in the world, it's hard it's understandable that it feels like it would be foolish to be that idealistic. Yeah. That to be that loving and that kind, to be that consistent in your love. Yeah. You just think that can't win. Right. But that's the only thing that can. Yeah, so Hardin is somebody where if he were on the mountain, the saint that would be able to just show him that, look, actually following your own logic perfectly is what will accomplish the results you're seeking. Yep. And not compromising them. Yeah. Right? To do good means it has to be good all the way through. Yep. The means and the ends all. Yep. And a lot of his creation of this cynical religion is with the best of intentions. Yep. Right? But I always thought, like, when I was reading the book this time around, I'm like, reading it, I'm like, oh, okay, and then he creates a fake religion to control people. I was like, well, buddy, why didn't you just make it real? Right. Like, because he doesn't believe it's real. Yeah. It can't be real. Right?
Yeah, he doesn't actually believe it himself.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to our August book, we looked at The Bourne Identity by Robert Ludlum. That was another really, surprisingly good book.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this earlier, and you had mentioned something really good that I want to just restate here, is that the idea that Jason Bourne spent the whole novel doing anything but looking at himself. Like, he was so sure that what he would find when he learned his own identity and who he was going to be bad, that he spent the whole novel both running from it and also like obsessively, subconsciously chasing after it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like the egomaniac with the inferiority complex. Like,
Yeah.
you think you're so bad that all you can do is think about yourself.
Right.
You know? And I had mentioned that it reminds me of the vignette in Lewis's novel of the woman that refused to look at herself.
Yeah.
You know, she didn't want anyone to look at her because she didn't think she was pretty enough, or like she wanted to look perfect.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's Jason Bourne.
Yep.
I don't want anyone to see me. I don't want anyone to look at. And you know, so much of it boils down to like wanting to control everything.
Yep.
You know, and like having so much pride that you think you can't be flawed.
Yep. That it's not okay for you to be flawed.
It's not okay to be flawed. You have to be perfect.
Yep.
It's like, well, where did you get that idea that you have to be perfect before anyone can behold you? And a lot of it stems from, well, I don't want to feel embarrassed. I don't want to feel ashamed of my flaws.
Yeah.
So it actually has nothing to do with other people. It's your desire to not feel things you don't want to feel about yourself.
Yeah.
You know, it's a degree of self-centered self-absorption that is, I mean, really like all of these sins boil down to self-centered self-absorption, self-protectiveness, not wanting to feel things that you don't want to feel, not wanting to look at things you don't want to look at. Like, it's like we want to build a cocoon around ourselves where like everything is just perfectly comfortable all the time. And that's where the evil one gets such a foothold in us. Because he promises us numb annihilation.
Yes.
He's not promising happiness.
No.
Right? Even in this world, he might be promising power, he might be promising gratification, pleasure. But what the evil one is really offering is, I will just annihilate your consciousness. You'll feel nothing. And that's what it is, that deep desire to just not exist.
Yeah, this is something I really relate to and something I've struggled with. Like that temptation to
numb out,
to, you know, welcome that annihilation, whatever it takes to hide the fact that I'm not perfect, to avoid having to look at any faults, you know, and have to actually sit with those and deal with them in a way that you can only do with Jesus Christ. And so, yeah, like reading this book, reading The Bourne Identity, watching Jason Bourne's sort of journey of wrestling with these things, like wanting to protect himself while still chasing after this identity, you know, wanting to understand and know who he is while at the same time being terrified of that. I think that if he were on the mountain, he would need somebody to show him, to find a way to show him that it's okay.
Yeah.
That, you know, like whatever he did, you know, whatever those evil sins are, like they're worse in his head than they are.
But you know what? He did find somebody on that mountain to do that for him. Marie.
Yes, yeah.
That was what she did, right? That's what the spouse does.
Absolutely.
You know, she was on that mountain, like just patiently working with him, saying like, it's okay to be seen. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know, and there were many times where she was like, I'm looking at you. And he's like, you don't know what you're looking at. And she's like, yes, I do.
Yeah,
you know, but that's, yes, that person that is tied to you and just will not give up on you.
Yeah.
You know, and she just would not give up on him.
Yep.
And I think in those cases, all it takes, there are so many times in my life that I've reflected on this, that I've been in like the lowest of the low places, or just wrestling so badly with those feelings of like, you know, self-pity, self-disgust, or like, you know, just so much fear and unhappiness with the circumstances of my life. And all it took was one person saying something kind. I remember I was having like just a horrible time in my life. And someone I barely know sent me a text out of the blue saying, hey, I was just thinking about you, and I hope you have a great day. You're awesome. It's like, this person hadn't texted me in like 2 years. It was so random. You know, and I have no idea what compelled her to send that text. But I remember like sitting in my car in the moment reading it and just bursting into tears. Like the tears just like, I had to pull into a Casey's parking lot and the tears just pouring down my face, because I was like, I think you just saved my life, lady.
Yeah.
You know, so you have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
You just tell the other person, like, hey, I see you, and what I see looks good to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, they're not God. They're not giving you their like final judgment and declaring objectively, I made you and you are good.
Yeah.
It's just another flawed person.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, they looked at you and in their subjective opinion, you look okay to me.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it was like, that really is, those are life-saving things we do for
Absolutely.
other people.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of what the Bourne identity made me think of.
Well, the other part of that to remember is that, you know, God has said that definitively and objectively, I made you and you are good.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, part of what I would imagine happens on the mountain.
But sometimes you can't accept that,
Yeah.
right? It's
Oh,
too
yeah.
big.
Yep.
Like, the objectives are... Also, it's too impersonal. When you
Yep.
haven't had that personal encounter with Jesus
Mhm.
Christ, the idea of God is, like, very abstract and
Mhm.
kind of out there. It's like the unit... Like, you don't know, oh,
Yeah.
God, this God made you, and you're objectively good. Like, you can't... There's nothing really to grip on. Like,
Mhm.
there's nothing meaty to grab onto there.
Yeah.
But, like, a fellow flawed human being
Mhm.
just saying something nice to you.
Yeah.
Like, the fact... Well, that person seems okay with the fact that I exist today.
Yeah.
You
yeah.
know, like that's real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, amen.
All right. Next in September, we read Dune by Frank Herbert. So this was a really good book. And the discussions we
Yeah.
had on this book were fantastic.
Yeah.
That's one of those meetings where,
We need to have like a second meeting
yeah.
about
yeah.
that book. Yeah.
So I don't know, who do you talk to? Because you have Paul
Mm-hmm.
Atreides and like all of the insane things he does to, you know, try to fulfill this prophecy to gain control of Arrakis and thence the Empire.
Yeah.
You have Gurney is a very interesting character and his like quest for revenge.
Yeah.
You have the Lady Jessica. I don't even know where to start on this one.
So here's where Paul reminds me of Ender
Okay.
before Ender's psychic
Yeah.
experience. Okay. Paul is still looking for power and control.
Mm-hmm.
He's looking for approval. He wants his mother's approval. He
Yep.
wants his father's approval. He wants to prove himself. He wants the Freeman's approval.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he hasn't experienced, he's not ready.
Yeah.
He's not ready for the saints
Mm-hmm.
to come down the mountain and talk to him.
Yeah.
Because he still thinks that by his own resources, he can accomplish the thing.
Yep.
And he's still on the path that Ender was on.
Mm-hmm.
And he has to experience that total personal devastation
Yep.
that comes only from getting what you thought you wanted.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, and sometimes until you have that total leveling and devastation, you're not ready.
Yep.
So somebody like Paul, at least in this novel, in the first Dune, I would say is not ready for the mountain.
Yeah.
Because he still thinks,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and the crime of which we are all guilty of, which is being
Yeah.
young,
Right.
you know, he still thinks that like he
Mhm.
can do it on
Yeah.
his own resources. He can do it.
Yep.
And that's a type of natural pride
Mm-hmm.
that only personal experience can overcome, right? You just
Yeah.
gotta give it time. Not to
Yeah.
say that children cannot be very holy.
Yeah.
Right? Like you
Mhm.
think of like, oh my goodness, I think of Saint Jose Sanchez del Rio, especially Saint Jose Sanchez del Rio. You know,
Yeah.
you look at these children, Saint Agnes, you know,
Yeah.
who have suffered brutal martyrdoms for
Mhm.
the Lord. And so you can certainly have that, but you can see in Paul, that's not there.
Right.
That's not there yet.
Right.
You know, a character that I think would really be great on the mountain is Duncan, Idaho.
Really?
Yeah, Duncan is
Okay.
he has such a fatherly affection towards
Yep.
Paul.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is a person that I got the impression that he has reflected so long on his own skill set and his own
Mhm.
talents, and he's attained a level of mastery
Mm-hmm.
that has rendered him fully aware of how inadequate all human effort is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like he's attained that wisdom
Mm-hmm.
that you can only get from meeting all of the mastery and expertise
Yeah.
that you thought you could attain in this life.
Knowing that at the end of the day, no matter how good you are, there are some things that are always going to be beyond you without some sort of supernatural help.
And he always approaches things with like a veiled sort of resigned quality that, well, no war is really going to be fought.
Mhm.
You're never going to fully defeat the houses that are against you. Like
Yeah.
whatever utopia you're trying to create in this life
Mhm.
is not possible. It's not going to. Everyone's scheming. Everyone's
Yeah.
doing this and that. He has a lot of affection for Jessica, the Lady
Yep.
Jessica, obviously.
Yeah.
But you can see in Duncan, Idaho, a type of almost supernatural intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
a humble intelligence that for all the scheming and all the nonsense and all the power and the money and all the things people are chasing
Mm-hmm.
aren't going to get anyone anywhere.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter at all. It doesn't make any difference. Sometimes the message that the person needs on the mountain is
Mm-hmm.
just, you're in a place where you need something to mean something.
Yes.
You're tired of all the empty,
Yep.
meaningless things that you were told
Mhm.
matter
Yeah.
in life, but they don't matter.
You need to know that A, that something does matter, and B,
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
Like, you need to know what really matters. And again, that's what we find in the gospel.
Right.
And that's what these ghosts are coming back to help people on the mountain with, is to show them, like, just keep walking. Just keep walking. Whatever you do, don't stop, because this is what really matters.
Right.
Overcoming these hurdles, facing these flaws in ourselves, becoming more solid, doing the work, whatever it takes to keep walking. Like, and I think if Duncan Idaho, like, if he could, like, be convinced that that is what matters, I don't know,
Yeah.
he'd be unstoppable.
Yeah. I have met people like that where it's like the empty materialism
Mm-hmm.
is what gets to them.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah.
You get to a place where it's like the things that this world has to offer,
Mm-hmm.
they are not satisfying. Our hearts are restless, Lord, and they
Yeah.
will not rest until they rest in you. And you just
Yeah.
start to realize, like, nothing in this life
Mm-hmm.
is also inconsequential. It's just sand going through your fingers.
Yep.
There has to be something real.
Yeah.
And you want God. And I remember feeling like that for, several years, but there was no God. There was just wandering in the desert and
Mhm.
feeling like, I know the things that matter,
Yeah.
like my marriage,
Mhm.
my children. And I'm in a world where I'm being told those things don't matter.
Yeah.
Right? You should chase after prestige. You should
Yep.
chase after career. You should chase after power. You should chase after this. And I was
Mhm.
like, I just have this thing in me, though, that the real things of life are these precious people that were put in
Yep.
it. And there's something genuine that I want to give my life to.
Mhm.
And the world is telling me not to do it.
Yep.
But it's all I want,
Right. Right.
and man, things can get really sour and really, like, if you don't get the message of the gospel right then,
Mm-hmm.
not right then, I mean, it can be a period of several years,
Right,
of course,
right.
or however long, whatever, but you have to have a lot of faith to hold on to this deeper and greater thing
Mm-hmm.
that you are utterly convinced means everything,
Yeah.
no matter what the world is telling you. And it can be a long time
Mm-hmm.
before you have that personal encounter with the Lord.
Yep.
To give you that.
Yeah.
You just hold on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, like, it seems like I'm far off of Duncan, Idaho, but I'm really not.
Yeah.
Like, this is why I relate to that character so much.
I get it, and like I can relate to that, because like I remember times before we came to the church and I remember talking to you about this, where it feels like I'm swimming against the stream.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is harder than it's meant to be. Like there has to be
Yeah.
some way that things are meant to be, and I'm trying to do everything the world tells me to do,
Yeah.
and it's hard and it's bad and it's not.
And it's
going
not
well.
working.
Yeah, it's not working.
It doesn't deliver.
Mhm.
Like, even when you think of a character like Duncan, Idaho, who
Yeah.
is, like, quote unquote winning at the
Right,
world,
right.
like, you look at that person and be like, well, you're at the pinnacle of, like,
Mhm.
what the world has to deliver.
Right.
So you should be delighted, right? You
Right.
should be so happy with that. And still, that feeling that
Mhm.
you're moving, you're swimming against the current.
Yep.
And you just know. And obviously, Duncan, Idaho was written as a character who has
Right.
a lot more awareness and wisdom than you and I ever did.
Right.
You know, it's like he's well aware that the things
Yeah.
of the world amount to nothing.
Yep.
That this is not the end business of life. And it's so meaningful that a book like Dune that never mentions the supernatural.
Yeah.
Never mentions a
Mhm.
hint of genuine spirituality.
Yep.
Right? It's all
Yeah.
pseudo spirituality. It's
Yep.
all man-made stuff.
Mhm.
And it never really talks about God, and yet there's a character like Duncan, Idaho.
Yeah.
So that's my
I like that.
that's my Dune.
Okay.
sort
right.
of like where I'm at right now with it.
Now we're on to the last book that we're going to talk about, The Martian by Andy Weir. We read this book in October. This was our Halloween book, and this is just one of my favorite books. I love this book, and I'm really so. Mark Watney is this model for. I've been reading the poem "The Happy Warrior" by Wordsworth. That's been kind of like a staple that I just go back to now and then, so I can remind myself, to have a good attitude, and to not get sour and annoyed, and to be that happy warrior. But you see that embodied in Mark Watney, and the way he just keeps on trucking. No matter what happens, he never despairs. He never gives up hope. He just keeps moving forward, and that's exactly what you need to walk up that mountain. However, we were talking about this, and we kind of came to the conclusion that I think Mark Watney would really struggle with this afterlife, because here is an extraordinarily intelligent, accomplished, educated man who has legitimately, through his own skills, education, and talents, overcome and accomplished amazing things. And there's a trap in that, right? Because you start to think that you did all those things yourself. Mm-hmm. You start to think that, I did this, I got myself off Mars, or even me and my team, but you develop this pride around being such an overachiever, around everything that you're capable of. What do you need God for? Yeah, what do you need God for? Yeah. Yeah. Why would he need to walk up the mountain? He's got everything he needs. Right. So I think it would be really interesting to see how do you overcome that? What kind of ghost has to come down the mountain and show him that, well, of course you need God. There's always going to, your own skills and talents are someday going to hit a wall. You're going to reach a point where it's not good enough anymore, where there's some challenge that you're not able to overcome on your own. And then you need God to either, find a way to overcome it, or to deal with the fact that you can't, or whatever it is. You need God in that moment. And then the other part of it is recognizing that he didn't do any of those things by himself. Actually, God was there the whole time. Yeah, I like how you thought you were doing it yourself, but he was the wind at your back the whole time. I love the way you said that. Yeah, that's what he said in the car. That God was there the whole time, and that God was the one who made the potatoes grow. God was the one who saved you in the windstorm. All of these little ways that he could very easily, in his own pride, attribute to himself. I think having an honest vision of where God was in his life at every moment would be a very humbling experience. The problem with people who are very intelligent, very talented, very driven, very accomplished, is that you get the idea that you built yourself. Yep. You created yourself, right? Because you went and got your education, and you trained, and you put in the effort, and you put in the discipline, and you start to think it was all you that did all of this, and you made yourself. Mm-hmm. However, we don't create ourselves. Yeah. We didn't, in any way. But it's hard to not see that. So when you are that satisfied with everything that you've accomplished in this life, you've hit the pinnacle of your career, of your competence, you've done all this, as the scriptures say, you have received your reward in this life. Yeah. Yep. There's no greater reward that you care about. Mm-hmm. So if you are told that there's actually much more in the spiritual realm, well, you're so satisfied by what you're getting in this world that you really don't care. You're not interested. Somebody's making a pitch to something that you don't want to buy. Right? What they're selling isn't appealing because you are so satisfied with what you have. And this is why, and I'm not saying obviously that doesn't mean don't be accomplished, don't be brilliant, don't be excellent. Of course you should, right? Stay humble. Well, how am I trying to say this? I think this is the best way to explain what the Lord meant when he said to be poor of spirit. To understand that the greatest accomplishments and brilliance that you could possibly come up with in this life is merely an icon that points you to the supernatural infinite degree of what that brilliance would look like, what sort of brilliance the Lord possesses.
Okay, so it reminds me again of St. Thomas Aquinas. Second time I'm thinking of this particular saint in this novel, but St. Thomas Aquinas at the end of his life just stopped writing.
Yep.
He just stopped writing. I mean, here, speaking of a man who hit the pinnacle of academic and intellectual brilliance, and with a cheerfulness and with a joy, right? Just like Mark Watney's character. And at the end, he just realized, like, I don't remember the exact quote, something like, all that I've written just amounts to straw. Or something. Because when you are put in a place where you suddenly see the brilliance of the Lord, you start to see how wide that chasm is between the peak of what a human being can accomplish and God. Right? And that's not a bad thing. It's not a destructive thing. It doesn't mean that all you've done means nothing suddenly. Right? But it's that you realize how much is there and you're willing to just let go of all your stuff to just gaze at the face of the Lord.
It puts things in perspective, and it shows you that there's something greater. It shows me that there's something greater than myself.
You can gaze upon brilliance. It is possible to gaze upon the face of brilliance, and it's not your own face. Right? Like that's what Mark Watney would need to see. That it's and I think that would be exactly the thing to spur a person like that up the mountain.
That brings us to our November book, The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis.
Which we've actually spent this entire video talking about.
This was a great book. We had a great discussion about it, and I'm so happy we did this year. This year was such a beautiful year of growth, of learning, of diving deeper into our faith, of getting to build a community with some really beautiful people who showed up every month to talk about these books with us. Thank you so much.
GCBC is like one of the best things we've ever done so far.
So far.
So far. It's like every baby, best thing we've ever done. Getting married, the best thing we've ever done. But you know what? It's a GCBC, and like how this has nourished our faith and made us better to each other and to our children and to the Lord. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that we get to do this.
Isn't that amazing?
I feel like something, there were times where when we took a baby home from the hospital, and I would be like, there must be some kind of mistake. Like, we're idiots, right? Like, this is a precious child. Like, who decided that we're good enough for these babies? So, to a far lesser extent, of course, than a human being, getting to do GCBC, I feel like looking at the Lord and being like, really? Like, you chose us to do this? This is like a really beautiful thing. Are you sure about that? Lord, and so we are so blessed to be able to do this.
We absolutely are. We had a wonderful 2025 with you all. Thank you so much to all of our subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe now. Join us for 2026.
We did hit our goal of getting to 100 subscribers.
We did.
We're like at 105.
Yeah,
which
amazing.
I don't know what to do now because that was my goal. So keep subscribing.
Well, our next goal is going to be 1,000 then.
Woo!
Yeah, we're gonna exponential.
That's big. I was going to say like 200, but this is why you lead, right? Because you think big.
So we have an excellent book list for next year. Join us in January where we're going to be talking about The Power and the Glory by Graham Greene. I'm really excited about that.
And we'll release the official 2026 list, which is secretly under wraps right now, in a couple of weeks.
In a couple of weeks. Well, the new website's going to be live tomorrow, and that has the new book list on it.
Oh, okay.
So,
but we're not going to tell anyone about that.
But we're not going to tell anybody about that. And then in a couple of weeks, we're going to have a video come out, much like we did at the beginning of this year, where we sort of introduce the list, talk about all the books a little bit, why we picked them, and then, help try to get you guys all hyped up for the next year. So please join us for 2026. It's free. Everything about this is free. Okay, we can't afford not to have these kinds of amazing conversations. We just love to do this. So, check out www.greatcatholicbookclub.com. Sign up there, and we would just love to see you at a meeting. And subscribe, like, and we'll see you next time.
God bless you. See you next time.
God bless you. Bye.